Hello, my name is Joachim Okhai, the President of the United League of Upright Citizens, otherwise known as TULIC. On this day, the 24th of May 2014, I want to speak to you about a very important debate amongst the avalanche of debates going on at the National Conference in Abuja. The debate is about resource control. Therefore, this message is titled Resource Control Debate at the National Conference. In subsequent messages, I will be discussing extensively and in-depthly about resource control in Nigeria and how to solve the problems connected with it. But for now, I want to discuss the surprising and one too many incident that transpired between a delegate from the South and the chairman of the conference, Justice Kutigi. It was about the presentation of a minority report and the need to increase the revenue sharing formula to oil producing states in Nigeria from 13% to 50%. As it went, we were informed that the delegate from the South was about to present the minority report on resource control and was overruled by the chairman of the conference, and what transpired after that, to me, was below par of what is expected from true representatives of the Nigerian people to the national conference. First, I want to commend all the delegates in the confab for the good job they are doing on behalf of our great nation. It is not easy for them to leave their daily necessities to tend to the concern of a ailing nation. Their services are worthy of our commendation, and I say thanks to all of you on behalf of a grateful nation. I want to also say the Nigerian people are counting on you to deliver on their expectations even as the conference rounds up in 4 weeks' time, because we understand that the federal government have just given an extension of extra 4 weeks to conclude the conference. I am posting this message today because of the altercation of one of the delegates from the South in reaction to Justice Kutigi's decision to overrule his presentation on minority report. The chairman said the conference is not willing to hear his report on resource control and the need to increase oil proceeds to oil producing states from 30% to 50%. Amongst other accusations from the delegate from the South which he made against the chairman, he said the chairman is fronting a northern agenda and that concerns of the minorities are not being addressed properly at the conference. The most shocking remark he made was that if the oil producing states do not get 50% of the oil revenue coming to Nigeria, he will order militant East boys to go back to the creeks, meaning to disrupt oil production and renegade on the amnesty program which is currently in place in our country. First, I must say Justice Kutigi is a respected legal luminary and a respected nationalist going by his service to our nation. And he has delivered very well thus far on his job description as the chairman of the conference. We owe him a word of gratitude. However, I think he mishandled the process of hearing the minority report which the delegate from the South was about to present to the conference. It would have been proper on his part as the chairman of the conference to give attention to the minority report, because we in Nigeria, majority and minority, are all stakeholders in the Nigerian state. He could have allowed the presentation from the delegate, allow the delegates to discuss it briefly, and allow a vote on it. And let the majority of the vote decide the stand of the nation on resource control, either to maintain the current 30% or to hike it to 50% as contained in the minority report. Nevertheless, it is important to state that I repose my trust in the leadership of Justice Kutigi, and we demand that he allows everyone, individuals or committee, to head their views and reports, as it is their constitutional rights to do so. After all, we are a democracy, and and the freedom of speech in our country and the opinions of representatives of the people must be allowed to be heard at all times. Having said that, I want to address the reaction of the delegate from the South, which is a huge source of concern to me and should be a huge source of concern to other Nigerians as well. As a son of the South, he did himself and the people whom he represents at the conference proud by trying to present the minority report. But we, Nigeria, must condemn the altercation and pronouncement he made, especially these. 1. If the current 30% accrual to the oil producers is not increased to 50%, he will order his boys to go back to the creeks, and that the chairman is fronting a national agenda at the conference. That statement is unfortunate and unpatriotic, to say the least. It is selfish and self-serving. Such levels of thinking and altercation has no place in the 21st century Nigeria, and it does not have a place in the progress of the Nigeria we seek to build. Each altercation is a threat to the relative peace we enjoy in the South and to the nation at large. As we condemn the actions of the terrorist group Boko Haram and their evil atrocities and crimes against humanity, so we also condemn the actions of Niger Delta militants who will derail the progress of our country and those supporting such action if his statements are to be followed with actions. We therefore categorically state that we condemn all atrocity against the Nigerian state and our people, and it is unconstitutional, and henceforth perpetrators of such actions must be brought to justice. Though the actions of Justice Kutuji on the issue was below par, but that action does not warrant such a reaction from a delegate to the confab. Such utterances from a delegate should not be treated with kid gloves. He should be suspended from the conference and another delegate from his interest group be sent to represent them, someone with dignity and respect for other delegates and Nigerians at large. There are proper ways to address issues like this, ways that pretend and portray high morals and values, not as demonstrated in an unpatriotic manner by the delegate to the chairman's ruling. Let me tell you a short story about patriotism and the high level of principles and values expected from people, delegates who are sent to represent a nation, delegates who in the nearest future might decide the destiny of our country. My story goes, when Abraham Lincoln was elected president in 1860, 7 slave states left the Union to form the Confederate States of America. 4 more joined when hostilities began between the North and the South. A bloody civil war engulfed the nation as Lincoln vowed to preserve the Union, enforce the laws of the United States, and end the secession. The war lasted for more than 4 years with a staggering loss of more than 600,000 Americans dead. Midway through the war, Lincoln issued the Emancipation Proclamation, which freed all slaves within the Confederacy and changed the war from a battle to preserve the Union to a battle for freedom. He was the first Republican president, and the Union victory ended forever the claim that the state sovereignty supersedes federal authority. Though he was killed by an assassin bullet less than a week after the surrender of the Confederate forces, Lincoln left the nation a more perfect union and thereby earned the admiration of most Americans as the country's greatest president. On August 7, 1863, he wrote a letter to Horatio Sherman. Lincoln said, "My purpose is to be in my actions just and constitutional, and yet practical, in performing the important duty which I am charged of maintaining the unity and the freedom principles of our common country." From this story, we understand that it is expected of every man and woman in Nigeria to fight to preserve the union of our country, the unity of Nigeria. We must demonstrate patriotism in words and also in action, as Abraham Lincoln did. Such dedication and patriotism to country and one another is what makes a nation great. Not low or self-serving thinking, not greed, and not shameful altercation that can lead to discord and disunity. We condemn these negatives wholly, and we say to anyone with unpatriotic mindset that they should desist from expressing them, because the new Nigeria has no place for such low morals and such low values. 3 key areas I want to address on this issue are these. 1. It is no news that the current 30% accruing to oil producing area is far below what is just and fair to a region whose shoulders the economy and the well-being of our nation falls. However, matters of this nation must be given adequate attention. It is my opinion and conviction that accruals should be increased from 13% to 30% to oil producing states, the way it was during a particular military administration. This is because we cannot as a nation continue to muzzle the goose that lays the golden egg. My suggestion is that the South should be allowed to control their resources and then pay 70% as taxes to the federal government. That should be captured in the current bill, the Petroleum Industrial Bill, before the National Assembly, and then there must be mechanism with which to monitor the disbursement and the implementation programs by the governors of the oil producing state to see that the funds are judiciously used to benefit the people who truly need and owns the oil. The pains of the people of the South even at the moment is that the 30% currently accruing to oil producing state does not even get to the people who owns it and needs it. It ends up in the pocket of the leaders of the states. They use the people's money to enrich themselves. That must stop. And to stop that requires forensic accounting of what has been before and a clear-cut monitoring system to monitor how the increased revenue are spent on developing infrastructures and human development, primary health care, and the fight against poverty in the Niger Delta. So, in my opinion, whatever comes to this state must positively affect the lives of the people who are the true owners of this wealth. Their leaders have betrayed them for far too long, and that must stop forthwith. The environmental pollution and destruction are more of a concern to me as a true son of the Niger Delta, and it is not justified for oil measures to connive public officials to allow such levels of damage to our environment and the means of livelihood of our people. This should be of a greater concern to all Nigerians. If we share in the resources of the Niger Delta, we should also share and handle the protection of the environment and our people as a national priority. We cannot enjoy the proceeds of oil and allow our environment to be going through such destruction. We should begin forensic analysis to bring all the responsible, whichever country they come from all over the world, to account. They should compensate all those who are affected by this environmental degradation. And if it is not allowed in America or Western nations for environments to be polluted and destroyed in such manner, we should demand same here. On seeing the massive level of destruction caused by oil pollution, one Wallace Jane Nichols said, "I have seen a lot of destructive fishing, marine mammals and sea turtle hunted almost to extinction, and I have seen a lot of pollution, but this kind of all that combined to one mega disaster." Paraphrase. So we must not sit idle and continue to allow the level of pollution going on in the Niger Delta. This is the future habitation of our children. Will posterity judge us if we do not act now to protect the environment for our children and the future of Nigeria? But the second point I want to discuss is, according to Malcolm X, You are not to be so blind with patriotism that you cannot see reality. Wrong is wrong, no matter who does it or who says it. And we must always speak out for the truth in our country in order for us to build an enduring nation, a nation that we seek, a great Nigeria that we so wish to have. Therefore, my advice is this. I want to clearly state that every meaningful Nigeria, every well-meaning Nigeria, especially the delegates to the National Conference, should mind their utterances that will affect the unity of our great nation has no place in a converb such as this. I am not speaking of blind patriotism. The delegates must have a sense of purpose and know that we are all God's children. We are created equal and we are one nation under God. And from the north to the south of Nigeria, we are one people. We are our brothers and sisters keeper in the north and other part of Nigeria. We are one family as a country. We all come from one family tree. The well-being of Nigeria must be uppermost in the heart of all those who are representing their people at the conference. And we denounce any attempt of any individual or body who is trying to disunite our country. Nigeria must remain one, and we must discuss all issues sensibly in broad daylight so that we can live together peacefully as a nation. Like I said before, even if we in the South produce the oil, we must remember that it is our duty to look out for the well-being of our brothers in the north and other part of Nigeria. We rise and fall together as one nation. We cannot afford to walk alone in this time. We know today, but we do not know tomorrow if other regions in Nigeria are responsible for our economic development and success as a nation. So we must treat each other with mutual respect and brotherly love. These are the bedrock which unites a nation and then lead to the development we are all seeking for our great country, Nigeria. The third point I want to touch is this: leadership responsibility and the taming of the hydra-headed monster of institutional corruption and insecurity in our country. We are aware that the current problems we are facing as a nation are directly linked to the leadership failings and their shortcomings. Negative leadership have negatively impacted our nation since pre- and post-independence. None should be exonerated. We also know that their failings are tied to high level of institutional corruption, which subsequently led to lawlessness, insecurity, lack of opportunity, poverty, disease, low literacy level, inequality, and lack of social justice, to name a few. This is why this national conference is a welcome development, and the present administration should be commended for convening it. In this same light, we demand that the present administration of President Goodluck Jonathan should not receive the report of this conference and fail to implement it as it was in the case in the past. The present administration, who was wise enough to allow this conference, should be mindful of history, because posterity is going to judge it right if this conference report is implemented to move our nation forward, or face the consequence of undermining the report, which will have adverse negative effect on the wheels of the progress of our nation. At the moment, our country is plagued with myriads of problems. Like I said before, most pronounced among them is corruption, insecurity, and the insensitivity of leadership to the plight of our people. Corruption is at the root of our problems. It is because of it that we are experiencing high level of insecurity today, high level of illiteracy, perennial poverty. This is because the leaders are using our commonwealth to enrich themselves. It is because of it that most Nigerians are living below the poverty line and surviving on less than $1 per day. It is because of the hydra-headed monster that the rule of law is ineffective in our country, and everyone do as they wish because they know they will get away with whatever they do, and it's quite unfortunate. It is because of this monster leaders are not connected to the people to know and identify with their sufferings. They care less about what the people are going through. Our country leaders say things that are contrary to their everyday actions and services to our people. And the lives of average Nigeria are now likened to living in hell in a nation with plenty. A nation which has enough and surplus to assist poorer nations the world over. This has led to our over-dependence on oil, which accounts for over 85% of our foreign revenue. We are a monoproduct economy instead of an economy which produces goods and services for export to earn even more revenue to alleviate poverty, care for the poor, and create opportunities for our teeming population. All these must stop. All this we must speak and fight against, be addressed in order to move our nation forward. All this must be placed on the front burner of our collective national interests. If our answer on these tasks is yes, then we will move forward. And if our answer is no, then we will find ourselves in deeper problems which the nation might not survive. Now is the time to act. Let us take this painful but necessary positive step patriotically to make our nation great. In Nigeria, there should be equal rights and justice. In Nigeria, there should be opportunity to all Nigerians, irrespective of tribe, ethnicity, or religion. In Nigeria, there should be care for the elderly, the disadvantaged, the less privileged, and the vulnerable in our society. In Nigeria, there should be peace, there should be unity, security, and prosperity for all. In Nigeria, we must know and affirm always that we are all God's children and we must be our brothers and sisters' keeper. In Nigeria, we must look out for one another and we must hold our leaders responsible for their services to our nation. We must hold them accountable from every naira spent. And we must do that in a meaningful way, not in fighting or felonious manner, but with high values and high morals based on high principles. High moral standards and demand that we must show the world that we can solve our problems peacefully and in civilized manner. Not by fear, but with love. Not by reprisal or on only way of wielding power unjustly by the government against the opposition or on all those who dare to speak out. We want the best for our nation, and to make our nation great, that requires the collective effort of all. We can disagree without being disagreeable. That we must understand in Nigeria. Therefore, in these last weeks of the conference, let all delegates carry out their duties to our country with mutual respect, brotherly love, and a nationalistic and patriotic zeal for our fatherland. Nigeria has been battered for too long. The next chapter of our great country will be written by you, honorable delegates. Do her proud. Right the wrongs of the past. Place Nigeria on a firmer footing. Resist the urge to disunite us. Resist the urge to make Nigeria continue in the current progressive path. Embrace peace because of our beloved fatherland. Embrace and respect the views of one another. Embrace good values and work for the well-being of our nation. We are a country in the world to call our own. We must love Nigeria and care for her. As you do this, you will place yourself in the right side of history. I will conclude with this quote by Abraham Lincoln. He said, "Let us at all times remember that all citizens are brothers of a common country and should dwell together in the bonds of fraternal feeling." Paraphrase. No nation can be great without patriotic citizens. No nation can be great when we think and act as if we are divided. No nation can be great when destructive issues like corruption are swept under carpet. No nation can be great when the young people who own the future are not given affordable and good education. Please take and pursue your duties with holistic zeal for a nation who is depending on you and your conscience to make her yourself. As you do this at the national conference, we pray that divine providence will be with you, and history will remember you as our heroes and as those who relive the ideals with which our nation's founding father fought and won our independence. Thank you for listening. May God Almighty bless our republic.